matters most. We're coming out of a pandemic, but we're facing a real crisis in crime and affordability. I will fight to keep police on our streets, to lower our property taxes, and to make our schools better. Early voting has already started, and Election Day is June 22nd. Please vote Elizabeth Crowley, ranked choice number 1 for Queensborough President.
Φίλες και φίλοι του Ελλάς FM, μια μεγάλη καλησπέρα. Καλησπέρα σε όλους εσάς που και σήμερα είστε συντονισμένοι εδώ, στον αγαπημένο ραδιοφωνικό σταθμό του ελληνισμού, εδώ στον Ελλάς FM, και σήμερα εκτάκτος ο Δημήτρης Φιλιππίδης είναι μαζί σας με μια εκπομπή εξαιρετικά ενδιαφέρουσα με την κυρία Elizabeth Crowley, η οποία τρέχει για το Queensborough President, για τη θέση του Προέδρου στο Queens, μία από τις μεγαλύτερες περιοχές. The interview will be bilingual. We will speak, of course, in English. I will translate in Greek, so we reach a bigger audience. And we are just a few hours before the polls open, before the voting starts. It's a great honor, Ms. Crowley. It's a big honor to have you here today. And welcome to Hellas FM.
Thank you, Dimitri. Thank you for having me here on Hellas Radio FM. It's a pleasure to join you this exciting time, just a few hours before the polls open tomorrow. I welcome this opportunity to speak to the Greek community here in Queens and New York City about just how important this election really is.
Η κυρία Crowley λέει ότι είναι πολύ ενθουσιασμένη που βρίσκεται στον Ελλάς FM, που έρχεται κοντά στην ελληνική κοινότητα για να πει πόσο σημαντικό είναι το να ψηφίσουμε σε αυτές τις εκλογές. I think it's been a long race. It's been a race under very specific circumstances. Never before we had a pandemic alongside the campaign. How tough has it been, and how happy, how satisfied are you with the result?
Oh, you're absolutely right, Dimitri. It's been a very unusual year. So many of our families have suffered so much, and our borough, last year we were hit the hardest. When you look at New York City and you remember just the devastation, a lot of that had to do with how unprepared we were as a borough because we're so overcrowded. Our trains and our schools operating beyond capacity, and the fewest hospital beds in the city. That made me want to make sure that we had better representation so that we don't get stuck in a situation like that. God forbid another pandemic hits us here in Queens.
Είπαμε στην κυρία Crowley πόσο δύσκολο ήταν εν προκειμένου να προχωρήσει μια καμπάνια εν μέσω πανδημίας. Η ίδια μας είπε ότι πραγματικά ήταν πάρα πολύ δύσκολο. Είναι overcrowded. Έχει πολύ μεγάλο πληθυσμό το Queens και υποφέραν οι οικογένειές μας, υποφέραμε εμείς. Χτυπήθηκε πάρα πολύ πέρυσι κυρίως το Queens, και γι' αυτό αποφάσισε να τρέξει για να υπάρχει καλύτερη αντιπροσώπευση του Queens στην Νέα Υόρκη. Όπως είπε χαρακτηριστικά, τα τρένα είναι overcrowded, τα νοσοκομεία είναι overcrowded, δεν υπάρχουν πολλά κρεβάτια στα νοσοκομεία. Και όπως είπε, αυτός είναι ο λόγος που τρέχει. I will keep this word overcrowded, yes, because I think it's the trademark now of Queens. I think whatever we talk about Queens, we end up saying that it's overcrowded. And I don't know if Queens was ready for such a boost in population.
You're absolutely right. We've been forgotten about. We're, in comparison to Manhattan and Brooklyn, it seems like Queens is always the last to get its fair share. And it may be that we're an immigrant borough. You know, my grandparents came here from Ireland. The motto was put your head down, work hard, and get ahead. And that's exactly what our immigrant families do, certainly in the Greek community. And you get ahead and buy on your own. You become successful entrepreneurs, property owners, and you don't depend on the government as much. But you're paying taxes, and the government needs to be there when a devastating pandemic hits like this. Now, we are overcrowded, but there's a lot we could do to help and build and plan properly. And that's one of the main reasons I'm running for Queensborough President.
Είπαμε ότι η λέξη overcrowded είναι the keyword, είναι η λέξη κλειδί. Είπε ναι, έχουν ξεχάσει το Queens, ασχολούνται με το Manhattan, το Brooklyn. Είμαστε οι τελευταίοι οι οποίοι παίρνουμε αυτό που μας αντιστοιχεί. Εγώ έρχομαι, λέει, από την Ιρλανδία, οι γονείς μου, είμαστε μετανάστες, εσείς είστε Έλληνες, πετυχημένοι, δουλέψαμε, τα καταφέραμε, όμως πληρώνουμε τάξεις, πληρώνουμε φόρους. Και γι' αυτό πρέπει η κυβέρνηση να είναι εκεί και δεν είναι εκεί. Προφανώς και είναι overcrowded το Queens, αλλά αυτός είναι και ο λόγος για τον οποίο τρέχω. So, let's go now, of course, to some issues of your agenda. I think it's always easy to talk about the agenda. It's very difficult to make sure that politicians hold up to it.
Sure.
I will say something, and this is my personal opinion. I've been watching politics all these years. Today it's a big honor to meeting you here. I know you are a person that delivers, and you have been a city councilwoman all these years, for 8 years, for 2 terms, and you made it. And I know that you're coming out of a political family, let me say. I know your father was very much into the Democratic Party, into politics. You are a person who could do anything else. Why politics?
You need to be putting your whole heart into something. You need to get satisfaction out of a career. And for me, it never was becoming wealthy or about money. It's about helping others. And that's how I grew up in a family. You know, I'm one of 15 children. And I was born towards the end, the 14th of 15 children. Many of my siblings went into similar type careers, probably because we watched our parents give back. And, you know, when you work like I did in the council, and I had the most overcrowded school district, we built new schools, you see how your hard work pays off and helps people in the most profound ways. And that's what I saw as a profession in politics, as somebody who could really help the masses, not just one individual, but more. And then, you know, people feel like they don't have good politicians. And that's why I've spent a lot of time in the community, knocking on doors, reaching out and working hard as I can to make sure I listen and understand and feel what's really happening with our families.
Αυτό το οποίο ρωτήσαμε την κυρία Elizabeth Crowley είναι ότι έρχεται από μια πολιτική οικογένεια και είναι μια γυναίκα η οποία έχει φέρει αποτελέσματα. Ήταν δημοτική σύμβουλος στη Νέα Υόρκη για 8 χρόνια. Λέει λοιπόν ότι όπως ο πατέρας της, his name was Mike, your father's?
Walter.
Walter. Walter has been in politics. I think he brought you into politics, all of you. Είναι 15 παιδιά, 15 children. Elizabeth is the 14th child. And then βλέπουμε ότι, όπως λέει η ίδια, έμαθε δεν είναι τα πάντα για τα λεφτά. Είναι κάτι να το κάνεις με την καρδιά σου. Είναι κάτι να το κάνεις με την αγάπη σου. Είναι κάτι να προσφέρεις τις μάζες και όχι σε έναν άνθρωπο. Γι' αυτό και το αγαπάω αυτό, γι' αυτό και τα αδέλφια μου, είμαστε 15, όλοι ασχολούνται με τα κοινά για αυτόν ακριβώς το λόγο. Δεν υπάρχουν πολύ καλοί πολιτικοί. Εγώ πηγαίνω πόρτα-πόρτα, θέλω να ακούω τον κόσμο, θέλω να ακούω και να βλέπω τα προβλήματα του κόσμου. So, now, of course, 15 children. It's not an easy, it's a beautiful family, not easy. Today, we have families that they have two children, and they believe it's difficult to make a living under these circumstances. Is this a motivation to you?
Yes, absolutely, Dimitri. Queens is no longer that affordable borough where working people could become homeowners. My grandparents came here with nothing in their pocket but the American dream, and they worked hard and they were able to become homeowners. I'm running because I want to make Queens more affordable again, but we're paying the highest property taxes in the city. When I left the New York City Council in 2017, I was able to put funding into a commission to study property taxes. And that commission came out with a report last year saying Queens is paying the highest property taxes, and it's unfair. I'm going to fight to make sure Queens property tax becomes fair and that we're not paying more than millionaires in Brooklyn or Manhattan.
Αυτό το οποίο ρωτήσαμε είναι εάν τα 15 παιδιά που είναι η οικογένεια της Elizabeth Crowley είναι ένα κίνητρο για να κάνει η ίδια, να στηρίξει την οικογένεια, γιατί σήμερα έχουμε 2 παιδιά και δεν μπορούμε να τα καταφέρουμε. Λέει, συμφωνώ, το Queens δεν είναι affordable πλέον. Δεν μπορούμε να ζήσουμε εδώ πέρα. Έχει τα μεγαλύτερα property taxes, τους μεγαλύτερους φόρους στην Νέα Υόρκη. Και βεβαίως, όπως λέει, υπάρχουν ειδικές μελέτες γι' αυτό. Είναι unfair, δεν είναι δίκαιο. Πάνω σε αυτό πρέπει να δουλέψουμε. You know, I'm of the people that believe that give taxes as long as you give back good trains, good roads, good hospitals. Apparently, we have problems with all of this.
And public safety.
And public
Crime
safety
is increasing right now. And that is the most alarming statistic we see because people are getting hurt. And many of our seniors and residents here in Queens are starting to live in fear and change their activities. They're not taking the train as much anymore because of what they hear. The truth is, violent crime has increased. It's not just since last year. It's over the past
And
2
the
years.
burglaries in Astoria, for example, the numbers are astonishing. Nobody could believe 10 years ago that you wouldn't be able to leave the window open. Somebody will jump in. And let's start the discussion to this agenda. I will be very honest. I know you've been with the Democratic Party all these years.
Yes.
And,
I'm proud to be a Democrat.
And many people today are trying to make a correlation between the liberal side of the Democratic Party and the police defunding. I'm very happy to have you here because I know you are one of the advocates in the Democratic Party against defunding the police. On the contrary, from what I've studied about you, you believe in more patrol on the street.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about it.
Yes. When I was in the New York City Council, I left the council and we were the safest big city in the country. We were proud of that. One of the last budgets in 2016, 2017, we added 1,000 new police officers to the ranks. Today, after last year and the riots, many police officers retired. We had over 3,000 in a year's time, and we haven't had money in the budget to hire new police officers as quickly. In fact, last year's budget, the council members that I was running against, that I am running against, they were both in the council at the time, they voted against the budget and spoke that it did not, in their opinion, defund the police enough. That they said they were happy that the police academy classes were canceled. Now, we have a new crisis on our hands. How do we recover if 3 people are shot in Times Square? Who's going to come visit New York City if we can't get tourism? If we can't, tourists don't feel safe. It's imperative that we restore funding and that we make our communities safe. At the same time, there are ways we can make policing better and build trust in our communities that feel that they cannot trust the police. We could train our officers better in de-escalation and other tactics, but that takes real attention to detail and dedication and funds, budget funds, and I will fight for that.
Ρωτήσαμε την κυρία Crowley λέγοντας ότι οι δημοκρατικοί, πολλοί μπορούν να πούν ότι οι liberals θέλουν το defunding της αστυνομίας, την αποχρηματοδότηση. Η ίδια μας λέει λοιπόν, και το γνωρίζουμε αυτό, ότι είναι υπέρ του να υπάρχει η χρηματοδότηση. Δεν θέλει να υπάρξει αποχρηματοδότηση. Μετά από όσα γίναν πέρυσι, έχουμε 1.000 αστυνομικούς οι οποίοι βγήκαν σε σύνταξη. Δεν ήρθαν πίσω στα τμήματα καινούργιοι άνθρωποι. 3.000 συνολικά έφυγαν από τη Νέα Υόρκη. Αυτό είναι ένα τεράστιο πρόβλημα. Έκαναν cancel τις τάξεις των αστυνομικών. Αυτό είναι παράλογο, όπως λέει. Ποιος θα έρθει στη Νέα Υόρκη? Είδαμε στην Times Square τι συνέβη με τους 3 τραυματίες. Φοβάται ο κόσμος να έρθει στη Νέα Υόρκη. Νιώθουν ότι δεν είναι safe. Πρέπει να υπάρχει η πολιτική του να προφανώς η αστυνομία να γίνει καλύτερη, προφανώς να υπάρχει καλύτερη εκπαίδευση, αλλά αυτό απαιτεί χρήματα. Οπότε ακριβώς το αντίθετο θέλουμε. Θέλουμε χρήματα για την αστυνομία. And to be honest, I think that one of the arguments has to do with that the police, they are afraid to play the role they have to play. They are the scapegoats in many cases. We have seen a whole rhetoric against police, and I think at the end of the day it's not Superman or Batman who will come to save the day. It is the policeman, and these policemen we have to trust, and of course work on any problems.
I agree, Dimitri. It takes a special person to risk their lives, say that they want to do this line of work, especially when we see shootings out of control. We have to respect officers, and at the same time, communities do need to feel need to receive the respect back. So it's a balance that we can achieve. We are the greatest city in the world. We do have the best police department in the country, and we should be proud and work together with our police to make it a better department for our city.
It has to be mutual.
Yes, I mean, look, you have two sides, and at the same time, the most important thing is for the police to be able to keep our communities safe, right? So we could go on about our everyday life. And at the same time, yes, there are communities that feel targeted, and we have to respect that and work with them to restore trust. But we can do that, and we will do that. But the best way to do that is by keeping our department funded.
Αυτό το οποίο λέει είναι ότι, σε απάντησή μας, ότι ναι, πρέπει να είναι mutual, πρέπει να είναι αμοιβαίο, πρέπει να υπάρχει σεβασμός και από τη μία και από την άλλη πλευρά και από τους πολίτες αλλά και προς την αστυνομία. Χρειάζεται να είσαι ένας special άνθρωπος για να ρισκάρεις τη ζωή σου για το κοινό καλό και να σώσεις τον συνάνθρωπό σου. Αλλά πρέπει και με τις κοινότητες που μπορεί να έχουν προβλήματα να έρθουμε όλοι πιο κοντά. I remember one of the cases with you, and as a journalist, I'm very, very careful about giving compliments to politicians. I've done it when I was younger. I regretted it. In your case, however, I want to emphasize that there was with Bloomberg as the mayor of the city. He wanted to cut funding, especially with the fire stations. And correct me if I'm mistaken, they wanted to close down about 20 fire stations.
Yes.
And it was Elizabeth Crowley that stood up and said, you know what? We cannot close them. We need them. We will find funding. So my question is, because many people will always say, it's a crisis, there is not enough money. Do you have the way to bring money to Queens?
There's ways we could cut spending. There are wasteful spending programs throughout the city's budget, especially after these years with Bill de Blasio there. The way they balanced the budget this year was with funds from the federal government and not enough reserves for next year or the next couple of years. We need to have responsible leaders. But what Bloomberg took over our city during a very difficult time. When I became a council member, he was already in for a few years. He was elected in 2001. I became a council member in 2009 after the financial crisis. And yes, our city had great challenges. And we had a responsibility to balance our budget. And fiscally, it made sense to cut programs. But I fought very hard alongside many communities that were in danger of losing their firehouses to show that there were other ways that we could eliminate wasteful spending. There were a lot of overtime jobs. We could push many city workers into early retirement. Those are types of programs that we were able to save monies on and fully fund the fire department because they're our first line of defense. A lot of times when families are not just a fire, but also a medical emergency, you call 911, somebody's in cardiac arrest, there's a car crash, every second counts. It is the paramedic and often the fire truck that gets there first with life-saving technologies to keep somebody stable so that they can get in the ambulance and be on their way to a hospital to get the proper health care that they deserve. We are a city like that. Often it's at no fault of somebody's own self that a terrible car crash can happen or some type of medical emergency comes about. And that's when we depend on our infrastructure to help us, when we're most vulnerable.
Αυτό το οποίο ρωτήσαμε την κυρία Crowley είναι όσον αφορά το κόψιμο στο budget, το cut spending και το budget spending. Η ίδια λοιπόν μας είπε και παρουσιάσαμε το παράδειγμα ότι επί Bloomberg υπήρχαν η απόφαση να κλείσουν 20 πυροσβεστικά τμήματα. Η ίδια είπε όχι, δεν θα κλείσουν. Μπορούν πάντα να βρεθούν λεφτά. Μπορούν να βρεθούν λεφτά από προγράμματα πρόωρης συνταξιοδότησης, από προγράμματα που μπορούν να δώσουν λεφτά. Όπως είπε, το 2001 ήρθε ο Bloomberg, το 2009 ανέλαβε η ίδια. Όμως τώρα για παράδειγμα με τον Bill de Blasio βλέπουμε να γίνονται λάθη με το budget και αυτό χρειαζόμαστε responsible leaders. Χρειαζόμαστε πολιτικούς και ηγέτες οι οποίοι είναι υπεύθυνοι. Όταν υπάρχει ένα ατύχημα, είναι η πυροσβεστική που θα τρέξει. Όταν υπάρχει κάποιος ο οποίος πρέπει να τον κρατήσουμε στη ζωή, η πυροσβεστική θα δώσει τις πρώτες βοήθειες πολλές φορές. Ως εκ τούτου, είναι πολύ σημαντικό, όπως λέει, να μπορέσουμε να κάνουμε σωστό allocation of resources, να μπορέσουμε να δώσουμε τα χρήματα εκεί που πρέπει να πάνε. Now, we have seen, as you said before, with de Blasio, and this is a question that I can never leave aside. I had Evi Hadjopoulos the other day here, who is running for the city council, and I asked the same question, and this is a question that everybody has. You're a Democrat. Apparently, de Blasio is a Democrat. What's your opinion about his leadership, about the second term? To my opinion, and I'm talking to many people, the city is not happy. People are not happy with the situation that de Blasio is giving back the city.
Right. De Blasio is the type of politician who's been a politician for his entire career. And, when I was in the council, it was often that we fought about different programs. I had oversight of the fire and the emergency and criminal justice committee. And there were a lot of times when I didn't see eye to eye with his administration, particularly the homelessness crisis. We had seen that people who were in criminal justice within our jails were rapidly cycling in and out. And he put funding aside to build centers to treat people for alcohol abuse, substance abuse, and give mental health services. Millions of dollars were spent on these centers, and still, Dimitri, to this day, New Yorkers are not getting service in those centers. He just never could get it together. I mean, he didn't appoint the proper commissioners so often to run the city agencies to make sure the proper work got done. And that's what you need, a really good manager to be the mayor of the city. And while I won't, I'm sure he's a good person, Bill de Blasio, and he wants to help. But when it comes to managing the city, I do not think he's done a good job. I do believe that I can give him a compliment. I'll have to say he's hurt us with the homeless situation. It's bad, and now it was bad when he became mayor. It's much, much worse.
To be honest, I have a very good neighbor in Franklin Square where I live. He's very nice. He's a very nice gentleman. I would never trust him to be the mayor.
Right.
So, I mean,
Yes.
Bill de Blasio may be the best person in the world.
Yeah.
However, there seems to be a problem. Let me do the translation. Όπως λέει η κυρία Crowley για τον Bill de Blasio, όλη την καριέρα του ήταν πολιτικός. Πολλές φορές ήταν σε κόντρα όταν ήταν στο City Council και ιδίως για τα θέματα του criminal justice, για θέματα ποινικού δικαίου. Πολλοί βγαίναν έξω και μπαίναν μέσα. Δόθηκαν χρήματα από τον Blasio σε κέντρα για το αλκοόλ και για τα ναρκωτικά. Δεν έγινε τίποτα. Δεν δίδεται υπηρεσία στον κόσμο της Νέας Υόρκης. Δεν υπάρχει καλό management. Δεν υπάρχουν σωστοί commissioners, σωστοί επίτροποι. Εδώ χρειάζεται ένας καλός manager. Μπορεί να είναι καλός άνθρωπος ο Blasio, αλλά αυτό δεν σημαίνει κάτι. Regarding the bail reform, the other day, if I'm not mistaken, 2 weeks ago, there was a gentleman in brackets. He attacked a woman in the train station in Herald Square. And we found out that he had done the same. He pushed another lady on December from the stairs. And he had about 85 convictions. He was he never stayed in prison. He was out, in and out, as you say. The bail reform, it's a problem for the city. Can we say that because of the bail reform, we have criminals on the streets, criminals that should be in Rikers Island or in any other prison?
Either in jail or in a hospital.
Absolutely.
Getting health care, because we have many mentally ill people who are out, who may be in some type of crisis and doing things that you wouldn't expect them to do. Often when you have criminals, they have an intent. They want to steal something and get a reward for it or somehow. But when you just push somebody in front of a danger, what kind of person would do that but somebody who needs a mental illness help? And so what we need to do is, first, we need to fix the bail reform. It's a state law, and that falls under the governor and the state legislature. They had made changes about 2 years ago. They went too far with their reform. They made modifications a year ago. They need to make those modifications again. Because when you have people who continue to commit crimes and get away with it, people who are found with guns, illegal guns, there should be no tolerance with that. Somebody pushing somebody in front of the train tracks cannot be on the streets. It doesn't make sense. And we're the ones suffering the most because of it.
Ρωτήσαμε για το bail reform τι γίνεται. Πιάστηκε πριν από λίγες μέρες ένας άνθρωπος ο οποίος έχει 70-80 convictions εναντίον του, καταδίκες, και όμως έσπρωξε μια γυναίκα στις σκάλες του μετρό, χτύπησε γυναίκα. Το ίδιο έκανε και πριν από 6 μήνες. Μπαίνει και βγαίνει. Λέει ναι, υπάρχει πρόβλημα. Υπάρχουν άνθρωποι που πρέπει να είναι φυλακοί και άνθρωποι που πρέπει να είναι σε ψυχιατρία. Άνθρωποι που έχουν mental illness, που έχουν ψυχικά νοσήματα. Δεν μπορεί. Έχουν γίνει modifications, πρέπει να γίνουν όμως καινούργια modifications, καινούργιες αλλαγές. Όπως είπε, δεν μπορεί να δεχόμαστε την παραβατικότητα. Όταν κάποιος έχει ένα παράνομο όπλο, τότε είναι υποχρεωτικό αυτός ο άνθρωπος να μην είναι στους δρόμους. Όταν κάποιος σμπρώχνει κάποιον στα τρένα, είναι υποχρεωτικό αυτός ο άνθρωπος να μην είναι στους δρόμους, λέει η κυρία Crowley. And at this point, Let's come back to Queens. We saw the bigger picture. However, Queens overcrowded, and I left Queens 2 years ago. I travel to Queens every day. To be honest, the happiest moment in my life every day is when I go to Grand Central. And I love Queens. However, there are big problems with parking. We see all the bike lanes that we didn't have parking. We destroy more spots for parking. We see all these big buildings coming up. Again, there will be a huge problem with the situation. I know you're advocating for free buses, for example.
Yes.
So the question is, can we make parking spots? Can we have more buses? Is this something doable?
We certainly can improve the transit here in Queens. When I mentioned earlier how we were the most overcrowded, we're 2.4 million people that live in Queens, and there's only about 2.8 million people that live in Brooklyn. But yet, Brooklyn has twice as many train stops as us. Brooklyn has more money every year from the city for affordable housing.
Why is that?
Goes back to why did our leaders let this continue to happen? It has been getting worse year after year. When it comes to the funding in the borough president's office alone, significantly per capita, our office in Queens gets less than the Bronx, gets less than Brooklyn. I do believe it has to do with how hard our immigrant communities work. They come here, they work hard, and their kids do better in school, and because of that, there's fewer dollars because the kids perform better on standardized tests. But to talk about the infrastructure for transit, because you live in Long Island, and many folks who travel into Manhattan's core come through Queens, we have an infrastructure of railroad trains. Now, with positive train control, you could run a lot more trains more frequently on these tracks at a much lower cost to individuals who could take these trains. One of them comes through Astoria. Now, that might not be a Long Island Railroad, but it's going to be a Metro North train that currently has no plan for a stop in Queens. It'll have 4 stops in the Bronx. It comes over the Hell's Gate Bridge once it starts running in 2 years. And the Bronx is getting 4 new stops on this Metro North train. And here in Astoria, it's just been forgotten about. And also with Jackson Heights, this train could stop in those 2 communities. I could see a future where that railroad train that is currently moving freight, it will move passengers because that's in the plan, but it could move passengers from Queens, and it could move them from Astoria to Penn Station quickly, from Astoria to Rockaway, all with 1-seat ride.
Λέει η κυρία Crowley ότι είναι πολύ σημαντικό. Η Astoria, το Queens μάλλον, έχει 2,4 million people living here. Το Brooklyn έχει 2,8 εκατομμύρια. Παρ' όλα αυτά, έχουν διπλάσια τρένα στο Brooklyn. Έχουν πολλά περισσότερα λεωφορεία στο Brooklyn. Έχουμε εδώ πέρα πολύ καλές επιδόσεις. Οι μαθητές μας τα πάνε καλά στο Queens, στα τεστ. Οπότε θεωρούν ότι χρειάζονται λιγότερα δολάρια να ξοδέψει κανείς στο Queens παρά στο Bronx ή στο Brooklyn. Όμως αυτό πρέπει να αλλάξει. Τρένα πρέπει να υπάρχουν περισσότερα. Δεν μπορεί το Metro North να περνάει από το Queens και να μην σταματάει και να σταματάει 4 φορές στο Bronx. Πρέπει να υπάρχει γενικότερα μια δυνατότητα όσοι έρχονται στο Queens, για παράδειγμα, και θέλουν να φύγουν στο Penn Station, να κινούνται πιο γρήγορα. Υπάρχουν θέματα ανοιχτά και υπάρχουν θέματα που πρέπει να λυθούν κυρίως με τα τρένα και με τα λεωφορεία, όπως λέει η κυρία Crowley. And of course the other thing I would like to talk about are the tickets. We see for some reason that we have more tickets in Queens than in the other boroughs. Tickets from the building department, tickets from the sanitation department, parking tickets. I mean, if you visit Queens and you live without a parking ticket, there is something wrong with you. Maybe you don't drive a car, they say.
It comes into the cost of having a car.
Exactly. But this is a problem. And not only for people visiting, and this is important because people want to come and buy goods from Astoria, but nobody will come after 2 tickets, for example. And then you have people living here, and they complain that there is a problem, a huge problem, with the building department. There is a problem with the sanitation department. So easily they give the tickets. Can the borough president, let's say tomorrow you're elected, Can you do it?
We can help.
Mm.
We want to make sure we cut all that bureaucratic red tape and make it easier for businesses to operate. There are many of the businesses that feel that they're being targeted, and
Yes.
our small businesses have been through enough. After this past year with COVID, I will make sure that they access stimulus grants that were put aside in the federal government and the state government. We need a city office where the borough president's office comes to the community and educates the business owners and the residents of what services are available to them. And we have to look at the city as not an agency that makes things more difficult, but a conduit to make it operating a business better. We have the most interesting borough because we are the most diverse, because we speak so many different languages. Or you just, look at the different restaurants on 30th Avenue in Astoria. We are that unique community because of our diversity. It gives us our strength. We want to showcase that. So when people are coming in from other places, other countries to JFK and to LaGuardia Airport, that they stay and spend their money as tourists here in Queens.
Αυτό το οποίο λέει η κυρία Crowley όσον αφορά τα τικέτα, όπως λέμε εμείς εδώ στην ιστορία, δηλαδή τα πρόστιμα, τα businesses, they had enough, λέει χαρακτηριστικά, αρκετά μέχρι στιγμής με την κρίση, με την πανδημία, με τον κορονοϊό. Δεν μπορεί να χτυπήσουμε άλλο τα μικρά businesses, τα εστιατόρια. Πρέπει να υπάρχουν ειδικά προγράμματα, stimulus grants για τις επιχειρήσεις. Πρέπει να υπάρχουν γραφεία, city offices, που να μπορεί κάποιος να μαθαίνει, να κάνει educate, να αποκτάει την παιδεία, τη γνώση για το τι προγράμματα υπάρχουν. Δεν είναι τυχαίο ότι το Queens είναι η περιοχή με τις πιο πολλές ομιλούμενες γλώσσες στην Αμερική. Αυτό ακριβώς είναι που μας δίνει δύναμη, αλλά αυτό ακριβώς πρέπει να στηρίξουμε και να υποστηρίξουμε. Όσοι έρχονται από το JFK ή από το LaGuardia, καλό είναι να μένουν στο Queens. Να ξοδεύουν τα χρήματα εδώ πέρα, να μένουν εδώ πέρα, να μπορούν να μένουν εδώ πέρα. Now, regarding of course the whole situation with voting, it's always a question, because tomorrow are the preliminary elections in the Democratic Party. We should emphasize that anybody can vote for Elizabeth Crowley as long as they are Democrats in all of Queens, right?
The whole borough.
Okay,
yes.
the whole borough.
From Whitestone to Bayside, Astoria,
Rockaway.
Middle Village, Rockaway.
Yeah.
We have 66 neighborhoods.
So, the question is very simple. In 2021, we believe in politics many times that, you know what, people say, you know what, I'm not going to get out of my couch. You know what? They will do what they want to do. My opinion doesn't count. They will do what they want to do. My vote doesn't count. What would you say to these people? Because I'm really frustrated. There have been people that died for the right to vote. And today we say, you know what? We cannot change the situation. Let them do what they have to do. They don't care about us, the politicians. What would you say to these people?
Your vote absolutely does count. It is your voice. If you're upset with the direction in which we're going in, then you must exercise your right to vote. We have too much at stake. We're at a crossroads right now. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We need to come back. We've gone backwards for the first time in a long time in this city. We've worked so hard to get where we were before COVID. And the pandemic has wreaked havoc. We're getting our lives back together. We're finally going back, parties opening up. But we have a crime problem. And we're going to have a fiscal crisis. We need strong leaders. And if you don't vote, you don't have a right to complain. That's what I feel.
Αυτό το οποίο λέμε για την ψήφο, λοιπόν, την κυρία Crowley, εάν μετράει η ψήφος και λέει τώρα είναι η ώρα να ψηφίσετε. Your vote counts. Έχει σημασία και είναι μια ευκαιρία. Μετά από πολλά χρόνια έχουμε κάνει βήματα πίσω, λέει η κυρία Crowley. Μετά από χρόνια είχαμε την πανδημία και προσπαθούμε να φέρουμε τις ζωές μας μαζί. Όμως, το criminality είναι ψηλά τα νούμερα. Οικονομικά έχουμε προβλήματα. Γενικότερα υπάρχουν θέματα που αν δεν ψηφίσετε, δεν έχετε δικαίωμα να παραπονιέστε μετά. Οφείλουμε να ψηφίσουμε πολιτικούς που έχουν όραμα και μπορούν να κάνουν τη διαφορά. So, what's your connection with the Greek community as a city council woman?
Well, let me first give a shout out to my friend Eleni and her sister Angela, who suggested I come on the radio show with you, Dimitri. They are big fans.
It wasn't a very bad experience.
Okay. They were very smart to suggest that. And they have a great hair salon in Maspeth,
Yes.
the old district that I represented, Heritage. And that's where I get my hair done. But we're good friends, and we go out to dinner on 30th Avenue. And they have a summer home in Greece. And one day soon, I'm going to
And actually, to reveal something, her summer house is next to my summer house. So we are neighbors in Greece, not here, but in Greece with Angela.
I hope to see you by the beach one day. But the next couple of days, we're going to be working hard, especially the next 24 hours, to get every vote out. And this is a type of an election where we're not even going to know the results, possibly for weeks.
Yes.
Because we have 50,000 absentee ballots, and then ranked choice voting, which is the first time in history where you have to get over 50% of the vote to win.
Αυτό, τη ρωτήσαμε για τη σχέση της με την ελληνική κοινότητα. Λέει η ίδια ότι έχει δύο πολύ καλές φίλες, την Ελένη και την Άντζελα, που έχουν κομμωτήριο και με τις οποίες βρίσκεται πολύ συχνά. Και ήταν αυτές οι οποίες τον όθησαν να έρθει στο ραδιόφωνο, κάτι το οποίο ήταν πολύ έξυπνο, όπως είπε, και χάρηκε που ήταν εδώ πέρα μαζί μας. Οι επόμενες 24 ώρες είναι πολύ κρίσιμες. Δεν θα ξέρουμε τα αποτελέσματα για αρκετές ημέρες και κάποιες εβδομάδες. 50.000 absentee ballots, 50.000 ψήφοι που θα έρθουν επιστολικές. Γενικότερα είναι μια πολύ περίεργη εκλογική διαδικασία. And I think that you were brought up in Queens, right?
Yes.
And you were you know the Greek culture.
Yes,
the Greek
it's been
community.
very similar.
Yeah.
My neighbors were Greek, Italian, Irish, hardworking communities that
Loud.
Care about family
And loud.
food,
Yes.
loud, good, wholesome people. And I really enjoy the opportunity to come on today and have an opportunity to share my message with your Greek audience, because I know that your community is so much invested in Queens, and will come out and make sure that their voice is heard tomorrow.
This is a good point. We have had many messages from people. We have Eleni Panayotopoulou Kesanidis. Tell her that she has my vote 100%. That's the message that we get. Okay, we have also a question from a friend that lives in Queens, that he has business in Queens. If I can ask you, he has a building of 6 families. He cannot do anything because the taxes go up, the water bill goes up, electricity goes up. He cannot put the rent up. That's the only problem. What's going to happen? Why are these people are pushed towards extinction?
Well, first, if there are any landlords out there that did not receive rent in the past 15 months, and there are a number of landlords because of COVID, the state has put together a fund to help pay for the rent. So if there's any landlord or a tenant out there, together they can apply, and the state will refund the landlord. And that's a smart relief program, because I know so many of our small landlords are providing affordable housing that our communities depend on. And we need to be mindful that they are small business owners in their own right, and that they have lots of expenses. We have to make Queens more affordable. Every year our water bills are going up, but the fact is that the cost of delivering our water is not nearly as expensive as other municipalities. And it's just a way for the city to make money. But at the end of the day, they're hurting not only that small property owner, but also everyday New Yorkers that are just trying to stay in the house where they live.
Το ερώτημα λοιπόν είναι από τον Γιώργο τον Παραή. Πώς μπορούμε, έχει ένα κτίριο 6 οικογενειών, συνεχώς πηγαίνουν πάνω το νερό, πηγαίνει πάνω το ρεύμα, δεν μπορεί να ανεβάσει το ενοίκιο, θα τους καταστρέψουν. Λέει λοιπόν ότι υπάρχουν relief programs στα οποία κάποιος μπορεί να μπει μέσα, προγράμματα στα οποία μπορεί να ενταχθεί και να πάρει βοήθεια πάνω σε αυτό εδώ πέρα, και είναι κάτι το οποίο πρέπει να δουλέψουμε. Τα έξοδα είναι πάρα πολλά. Πρέπει να κάνουμε το Queens πιο affordable, όπως λέει, πιο προσιτό στο να ζήσουμε. Επίσης, όπως λέει, το νερό πηγαίνει πάνω, αλλά δεν είναι τόσο το κόστος που επιβάλλει αυτή την αύξηση. Είναι το ότι η πόλη της Νέας Υόρκης προσπαθεί να πάρει λεφτά από κάθε τέτοιο λογαριασμό. Πρέπει όλοι να ρίξουμε το κόστος για να μπορέσουμε όλοι να ζήσουμε. Δεν επηρεάζονται μόνο αυτοί που έχουν τα κτίρια. Επηρεάζονται όλοι γενικότερα. Another one question, Elizabeth. Hi Dimitri from Panagiotta Marcos. Can you ask how do we improve safety even if we restore funding to the NYPD with the bail reform and the new discovery law? Bail reform releases the criminals back on the streets, and the new discovery law gives the criminals the rights to all witnesses' information, including all anonymous 911 callers. For example, who will be willing to help someone in need when they know their information will be given to the criminals with the right for them to question the witnesses if they call 911 or hand over video footage that they may have taken? That's a very good question.
It's a very good question. The person asking it probably had some experience to know all the levels of, one would say, bureaucracy, but in prosecuting somebody who's been arrested for a crime, there's so often the prosecution is not able to carry through because witnesses no longer will, they become afraid because of any consequence they think may happen thereafter. We need to restore the belief in New York City, and we have to work with our state legislature and our governor to reform the bail laws.
Is this something doable? I mean, I'm always
yes.
asking this because people may say, you know what, okay, they may change it in 10 years, but now is the problem.
We need to, there are some boroughs that prosecute gun violence more than others. And Queens does more than Brooklyn, for example. Manhattan had a very sophisticated gun violence unit where they were able to stop guns from being trafficked into New York City. We need to bring those programs back. And there should be no tolerance for gun violence, first and foremost, because you saw what's been happening in our communities throughout New York City. The shootings are out of control. That needs to be reformed right away. I urge our state leaders to do that. But your person who asked the question also said, but you could hire more police. Any time in history when we've had more police, it's been safer. Because even those criminals know that there are more police on the train, for example. They're going to stop crime before it happens, or they'd be more less willing to commit the crime because they're more likely to get caught. So many times crimes happen and people just get away with it. They don't get caught.
Correct. Στην ερώτηση λοιπόν για την αστυνομία, λέει η κυρία Crowley ότι είναι πολύ καλή ερώτηση. Όντως, λέει, γνωρίζει καλά ο άνθρωπος που έκανε την ερώτηση, γνωρίζει τη διαδικασία. Οι μάρτυρες φοβούνται. Πρέπει να επανακτήσουμε την πίστη στην πόλη της Νέας Υόρκης. Πρέπει να δουλέψουν μαζί οι νομοθέτες. Πρέπει να δουλέψουν μαζί όσοι έχουν ευθύνη. Κάποιες περιοχές είναι πιο αυστηρές στις ποινές από ότι κάποιες άλλες. Για παράδειγμα, το Queens έχει πιο αυστηρούς νόμους από ότι το Brooklyn. Αλλά πρέπει να το πούμε ότι δεν μπορούμε να ανεχτούμε παράνομα όπλα στα boroughs που έχουμε εδώ πέρα. Πρέπει, όπως είπε, να πάμε σε περισσότερη αστυνομία. Ιστορικά, όποτε υπήρχε περισσότερη αστυνομία, ήταν το σημείο στο οποίο ο κόσμος ένιωθε πιο ασφαλής. Γιατί αν μέσα στο τρένο υπάρχει αστυνομία, τότε είναι πολύ πιο εύκολο κάποιος να σκεφτεί 2 φορές για να κάνει το έγκλημα πριν κάνει οτιδήποτε. Before we close, about the mayoral race. Do you have any endorsement?
Yes, I have endorsed Andrew Yang.
Okay.
I believe that he is the change our city needs. He will put people before politics. We've had too many status quo type of politicians, and I would put Bill de Blasio in that category, and that's what I was going at. He may have been a good person, he might be a good person, but with him it's politics as usual. And the political influence and special interest influence in government, we cannot afford that right now. And I believe with a lot of the candidates, you have people who've worked in his administration or have been elected before, and they don't represent the type of change we need right now for the city.
Η ίδια λέει ότι έχει κάνει endorse τον Andrew Yang. Χρειαζόμαστε αλλαγή. Πρέπει να βάλουμε τους ανθρώπους πριν από τα politics, όπως λέει η ίδια. Με τον κύριο Blasio ήταν politics as usual. Ήταν συνηθισμένη πολιτική συμπεριφορά. Δεν μπορεί να έχουμε ανθρώπους που δεν εκπροσωπούν αυτή την αλλαγή να τρέχουν για υποψήφοι. Γι' αυτό είναι με τον Andrew Yang. I know that today you're going to a big event.
Oh, yes. Tonight we're going to the opening game of the Mets. I'd say the opening because the stadium could be at full capacity
Yes,
again.
for the first time.
Yes, for the first time. Very exciting because our Queens and New York Mets are in first place too. So they're a winning team, and we are hopeful that me and Andrew Yang are also a winning team. So one winning team supports the other winning team hours before the polls open on election day.
I hope so for that, Elizabeth. I really hope so for that. This is an indication. This is an indication that we're going back to normality, whatever normality is now.
Yes.
But this is some very, very good news.
This is good. And Dimitri, if I could just clarify,
Absolutely.
because when it comes to crime, again, both of my opponents go to the very left extreme. They're defunct. They don't say we need to fix the bail system. I represent the type of sensible leadership we need. While we understand that there needed to be some level of criminal justice reform, we went too far. And New Yorkers need to feel safe again. And I'm committed to fight to make sure that every New Yorker will feel safe again.
I really enjoy discussing with you, and you give me always the pass for my last question. But hasn't the Democratic Party moved too much to the liberal stage?
In past elections in Queens, we've seen the extreme happen. But the borough of Queens is a moderate type of Democratic borough. It's not totally to the left. And I believe that we'll see that when the polls return tomorrow night and as we continue to count in the days to come. Queens needs a strong comeback. We cannot afford to go backwards. And every voter has that opportunity to join the comeback. I want to be a part of that comeback with our communities moving forward. I'm optimistic about our future. After all we've been through, I know that no community anywhere else in the world could come back as strong as we can here in Queens. And that's working together, fighting for a strong comeback.
Τη ρωτάμε αν το Δημοκρατικό Κόμμα είναι πολύ liberal, αν μετακινείται προς την άκρα αριστερά. Λέει ότι υπήρξε αυτό στις προηγούμενες εκλογές, όμως η ίδια εκπροσωπεί ακριβώς το αντίθετο. Κάτι πιο μετριοπαθές και κάτι διαφορετικό από το liberal κομμάτι. Πλέον χρειαζόμαστε ένα comeback. Και αυτό το comeback, λέει η ίδια, μπορώ να το προσφέρω. Χρειαζόμαστε ένα comeback και χρειαζόμαστε όλοι μαζί να μπορέσουμε να φέρουμε αυτή τη στιγμή αυτή την αλλαγή. Γι' αυτό και οφείλουμε να σκεφτούμε και να πράξουμε πολύ πιο με πιο μετριοπαθή τρόπο, όπως λέει η κυρία Crowley. It's been an honor being here with you. I hope next time we meet you have gained the democratic victory and you go to November. We hope all the best. We need politicians who don't do politics for themselves, but for the mass, as you said before. And we need this comeback. So if the comeback is to come with Elizabeth Crowley, we go with Elizabeth Crowley.
Thank you, Dimitri. I look forward to coming back and have an opportunity to be on Hellenis Radio and talk more with you about the future of Queens.
I'm sure we're going to do that. Thank you so much. And κυρίες και κύριοι, thank you so much for being with us. It's been an honor to host Elizabeth Crowley. Do not forget that every vote counts. Let's forget staying home and criticizing. And we, the Greeks, we do it many times. We say, oh, this politician did this and did the other, but we didn't vote for him and we didn't vote for anybody and we stayed home. Let's do it. I will say something and I want to make it simple. We honor people who honor us. So check out which candidates came to Hellas FM. I want to thank all the team of Elizabeth Crowley, because they didn't say, can we do it on the phone? No, we will come to the studio. And to me, this says a lot. And to me, this is the essence of giving importance to our community. And for this reason, we said it from before, we are on the side of Elizabeth Crowley. Thank you so much for everything. And I wish you only the best for tomorrow's results.
Thank you. Thank you to all the listeners. Thank you to Hellas Radio and hope to see you again soon.
Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ την κυρία Crowley. Όλοι οι δρόμοι οδηγούν στο να ψηφίσουμε και πρέπει να ψηφίσουμε γιατί η ψήφος μας μετράει. Δημήτρης Φιλιππίδης στο μικρόφωνο. Εμείς θα είμαστε μαζί. Πρώτα ο καλός Θεός αύριο. Η σκητάλη περνάει στον Κώστα τον Κατέχη και τον ευχαριστώ που μας έδωσε τον χρόνο του για να αλλάξουμε το πρόγραμμα. Εμείς θα είμαστε μαζί αύριο και με τις εκλογές και έχουμε να πούμε πολλά. Από τον Δημήτρη Φιλιππίδη, ευχές για ό,τι καλύτερο. Γεια σας σε όλους και χαρά σας.
Ελλάς FM